Welcome to episode 11 of Pinnacle FC. Gareth Wheeler, Jake Osgathorpe with you as we're going to look ahead to the weekend across European football. We're coming off a weird week. Last week, by the way, we started to keep track of our top three bets of the week. We both went 1 for 3, so a little bit of a loss for both of us by virtue of those results. But the week before, we were red hot. And I feel like those rough waters or the unpredictable nature continued from last weekend. You know, prime example, we were both on Aston Villa on a double chance, up 1-0 at halftime and concede 4 times to Spurs to lose that match 4-1. And then in the Champions League on Tuesday, it was just wild and wacky. City losing at Sporting. You had Real Madrid losing at home to AC Milan pretty convincingly as well. It's been a weird week of football, Jake. So I think this week's just about getting it back on track.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to try, but if it continues being weird, it's always going to be very difficult to get your betting picks right. Yeah, it's just one of those weekends where the logic and the value was there, but just a few bad breaks here or there, and Villa just not turning up in that second half. We called a few things right, didn't we? I mean, you had the unders in the Newcastle Arsenal game, which kind of cruised in. I was on the overs in Wolves Palace, which I was sweating about at half time when it was 0-0. I was sat with some of the guys in Portugal, and they were all giving me loads of banter about, oh, you said this was going to be loads of goals, and then thankfully the 4 appeared in the second half to kind of save my bacon there. But yeah, Champions League is just I'm really enjoying the new league phase. I think it is adding a real element of surprise, and it does mean that lesser teams, if you can call them that, or underdogs, probably better describe them. They are going for wins at bigger sides, whereas if you perhaps in the old format, you wouldn't see that as much because a draw would be a good result. You only needed like maybe 6-7 points to advance. So really enjoying that. But I do just hope there is going to be a little bit more calm and back to normalness this weekend, because that'll make our job a hell of a lot easier before what is another international break.
That's what I was going to say. The final weekend of domestic football before another international break. I know that this is your favorite time of year, Jake.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they seem to have put another one in the calendar. I don't remember there being 3, September, November and October. But yeah, I just love me some Nations League football. It's my favorite.
Yeah. We have Nations League and CONCACAF over on this side of the pond as well. And I'll be calling Canada-Suriname over the pair of a home and away upcoming next week. So, look, our focus here on this program is domestic football. And this is a good enough time as ever to look ahead to the futures markets on Pinnacle as well. And let's start with the Premier League. I think most of our picks and plays this week are in the Premier League. Just it's the fixture list that's kind of determining that and where the market might show some value. But all of a sudden, Liverpool just continuing to retain their top spot in the Premier League, but the teams around them continue to drop down or really not be able to hit their full stride here in the early stages of the season. They have a 2-point lead on Manchester City, and all of a sudden Arsenal's on 18 points and 7 points adrift. If you look at the futures Premier League winner market on Pinnacle, Liverpool are favorites at plus 164. City right there as well, plus 165. Then Arsenal plays at plus 351, and Chelsea all the way out at plus 1802. What do you make of that market? I know that you, on this podcast, have been backing Arsenal. They've had a really tough fixture list to start the season, complicated even more so by injuries. But Liverpool as favorites, according to the market. What's your read on that?
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that they've clipped them so quickly. I mean, first, we have to say they have been impressive. They've had a kind schedule, but they have dealt with it in a very good manner. It's just the one defeat to Forest and the one draw at Arsenal, which has definitely been the toughest game so far. But yeah, just treading with a bit of caution around Liverpool. Like, fully understand that this comparison's not fully sound in the sense that Liverpool are a much better side and have a much better pedigree than Tottenham last year. But Spurs were at the top of the table through 10 games unbeaten last season, and after managerial change under Postecoglou, and it kind of all crumbled apart there, where a couple of teams really got their number, and that just rippled through the Premier League, and they figured out how to deal with and play against Spurs. And I just wonder if we might have something similar. Granted, as I said, this Liverpool team are a much higher class than that Spurs team and have much more depth and have proven winners, so they might be able to deal with it a tad bit better. But I don't think we'll see them running away with the Premier League title. And they have got a lot tougher tests to come, especially across the Christmas period, where the fixture list, as we know, just piles up and piles up after this last international break. The advantage Arsenal have got really is that this is going to be, one of the first times in the last few years that they're actually chasing. 2 years ago, they were the front runners. City ran them down. Last year, they were the front runners until about April, and then City just, it was that Villa game, wasn't it, where they lost and handed the initiative to City. So this might be something that they relish, a different challenge. And as we mentioned, they've had a tough schedule. They've had 4 of last season's top 7 away from home already. They've got another one of them this weekend. And that means at the back end of the season, they're going to have all those teams coming to the Emirates, and that has to be seen as an advantage. So, yeah, I'm not quite giving up hope on them. Man City, obviously, they're the kind of wild card at the moment with severe injuries, missing key player in Rodri, arguably the best and most important player. De Bruyne is still out. There's still the looming charges. We don't know what's going to happen with those. But then again, more than capable of just reeling off 18 wins in a row the second half of the season. So I think it's wide open. I probably am a little bit surprised at how short Liverpool are. But again, that's probably down to the amount of control they've had in matches, which is something that we've not seen from them over the last 7 or 8 years under Jurgen Klopp. It's been chaotic end to end, whereas Arne Slot seems to have the team playing in a much more controlled manner, which does seem a lot more replicable, similar to how City and Arsenal played over the last couple of years. So, I really hope we end up with a 3-horse race, because getting bored of Arsenal City the same way we're getting bored of Liverpool City. Let's open it up.
We might have more than that, Jake. Like, this might be one of those just random years where things completely go off script. Like, Bernardo Silva's come out, says that Man City's in a dark place. No Rodri. Rodri's been so important for that team. They've won 74% of games in the Premier League that he's been available for. Without him, they're hovering around 66. Like, it's a significant difference as well. And look, Arne Slot, his side brings stability. Like, this team looks a whole lot more stable than it did under Jurgen Klopp. And Xabi Alonso, the Leverkusen manager, I know he's biased based on his past. He says Liverpool's the best team in Europe right now. And the data that we use in terms of expected goals is on understat.com, and it holds true. The most expected points in the Premier League so far, Liverpool. By the way, if you fancy Liverpool in European competition, where they've been very good so far, plus 600. That might even be a better play, with City, Real Madrid, and Barcelona the only sides with shorter odds. Let's turn our attention to the Premier League, because I think that and the games this week, one of those teams that I think that still could very well be in the mix at plus 1802 to win the Premier League is Chelsea. They're at home this week against Arsenal. Both sides are on 18 points, both kind of still in the mix. But this would be a statement victory at home for Chelsea if they can beat a languishing Arsenal side. Chelsea coming off a 1-1 draw at Old Trafford. They're in a manageable competition as well in the Conference League. Arsenal coming off that 1-0 loss to Newcastle. We're recording this podcast on Wednesday ahead of the Arsenal Champions League tie against Inter Milan as well. Chelsea, you can back them to win this outright at plus 192 on Pinnacle, plus 149 on Arsenal. They're a slight favorite, and the total set at 2 3/4. Minus 103 for the over, minus 109 for the under. What do you make of this fixture? It's a huge one for both sides. We also should just mention, it looks like Martin Odegaard will be back in the matchday squad, which will be a lift, but how much he could play or what his availability will look like for this game is completely up in the air at this point.
Yeah, that's the problem for me, really, because if he was playing, I'd be looking at this Arsenal number and expecting it to drop quite drastically. Plus 149 is, with Odegaard in the team, is too big, and I would definitely advise getting on board if you get some kind of information that he's going to start. I think that's absolute value. The proven of the two teams, they're the more reliable of the two teams for sure, especially defensively. So I wouldn't be putting anybody off an Arsenal play. From what I've heard, I think he's in the squad. He's travelled to Italy for the Champions League game. I'd be shocked if he started that game. think they'll be saving him for this and looking at getting a really important 3 points. But either way, yeah, it's a massive opportunity for a statement for Chelsea, isn't it? I mean, they could really, really lay down a marker and let everybody know that they, having been a laughingstock throughout the summer, they are actually serious. They're a serious football team with very good players, and I fully expect them to give Arsenal a really, really good game. I just wonder if they're going to have enough to break down what is a very stubborn Arsenal defence. And like I said, I unfortunately don't have a play for this game. But if Ødegaard is in the 11, I will be looking at making a pro Arsenal play, maybe down to plus 130 or something like that. But obviously, at the time of recording, we don't know if he's going to start. And I'm kind of speculating as to what kind of price I would expect to see if he is in the lineup. But I think he is that important to Arsenal and their attacking output, knitting everything together, that I would be surprised if they went to Chelsea, got a result without him, to be honest.
Really, I don't see it right now. I just don't. The instability around this team, from Edu to Arteta to the team without Ødegaard, right now I can't back them. Let's start with Chelsea. They're 4-1-0 in their last 5 games in all competitions at home. They've shown some real decent form, and they have depth and talent in different types of players that can come in and be effective for this team. More concerning is Arsenal's away form. You mentioned that they played good teams, but they haven't fared well against them. They have the 4th worst expected goals away from home, just 5.47. 5 goals scored, 5 conceded. So defensively, they've been okay, but the expected goals against, they've been giving up chances. 7.91 is higher than the goals that they've given up. That's only 6th best, by the way. And Arsenal is a team that prides himself on their defensive shape and form away from home. They're 13th in expected points away from home. This is all very unusual for me. I just look at this team, this Arsenal team away from home, like lost at Newcastle, lost at Bournemouth. They drew City. It's been a little bit of a slog, and they've even conceded goals at home, like 2 to Leicester City, like teams that they shouldn't be conceding against. So I can't back Arsenal right now. And give me a draw no bet on plus 112 on a plus money for Chelsea in this one. I'll take the risk. This game could very well end in a draw, but I'll give the slight edge to the home side in this one. Maybe after the break, when Ødegaard's had some more time to come back into this team and he can really leave his mark. 65% of the games that Ødegaard plays with Arsenal, they win. Without him, it's 47%. So that's just a big difference there. He's just such an important player. So Chelsea on the draw no bet for me is the play in this one.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if Ødegaard went on international duty with Norway. Because if he is fit enough, then probably going to be captain, he's probably going to want to get out there, which will frustrate Arsenal fans, no doubt. But just looking at the bookings line for this game, Pinnacle have got the line set at 5.5. Now that sounds big, but this is a very, very card-laden game. It's a massive rivalry. It has been for years. I would not put anybody off taking the over and maybe throwing a couple of darts at player cards as well. I'm trying to think. I probably will be looking at Reece James if he's playing left back, coming up against Bukayo Saka, who obviously draws a lot of fouls as it is, and Reece James is a bit of an alien position there. That would be one I would be looking at from a player card angle. At the time of recording, Pinnacle don't have them up, but they will do closer to kickoff. So something to bear in mind there. And if again, Arteta sticks with a Rice-Marino midfield partnership, backing one of those two or both to be booked, because Cole Palmer in the number 10 role is drawing a hell of a lot of fouls as well. I think he drew 3 or maybe 4 fouls against Manchester United last weekend. Marino has picked up a card at Newcastle, made 4 fouls in the game against Liverpool, and obviously Declan Rice has already been sent off once this season and picked up a card a further 2 times. So a couple of player card angles, given that I think that we're going to be in for a bit of a feisty match as well.
Yeah, I looked for Caicedo. He was excellent against Manchester United, but he's
really
a lot of ground behind a lot of decent enough attacking players. So that's a direction that I wouldn't shy away from either. Let's deal with the co-main fixture of the weekend. I think it's Liverpool hosting Aston Villa. Liverpool atop the table. Villa coming off that disappointing loss last week, 5-1 at Spurs. Another difficult away game for Unai Emery's side. They're in 4th place, level on points with the 2 aforementioned sides in Arsenal and Chelsea in this one as well. Liverpool are a favorite by this one. And on the handicap, the line is a goal and a quarter at minus 115, just about both ways. Liverpool haven't lost in 12. Villa have been okay away from home despite that Spurs loss, 3-1-1 overall. What do you make of this game? Is there a play to be made here? Like, I can feel your reservations around Liverpool. I don't share those reservations, but we looked at the Champions League market midweek for Aston Villa. I'm just not really sure that they're completely appreciated how good this team is by the market. Or maybe results last weekend kind of give you a little bit more value if you want to back Aston Villa.
Yeah, I think definitely is some recency bias baked into these numbers, but not by much. I am a bit surprised that you're getting a goal and a quarter head start if you wanted to back Villa. I mean, last week at Spurs they were given half a goal, and are Liverpool 3/4 of a goal better than Tottenham? I would probably say not. So that immediately draws me towards a Villa play, but that second half capitulation was very concerning. We know that they've not fared very well off the back of a European week either so far this season. I don't think they've won at the back of a European week, or at the very least, they've needed a late equaliser or a late winner. So yeah, I'm going no play here because I could see any kind of possibility. Like I said, I've had reservations about Liverpool. Defensively, they are very solid, so I don't have too many problems there. And yeah, had Aston Villa not completely capitulated last weekend and kind of shown a different side to themselves from the usually reliable defensive structure, I would be looking at the under 3.25 with serious opportunity. But yeah, like I said, coming off the back of a midweek away from home in Belgium, 1 day less rest. Liverpool have just put 4 past the German champions at Anfield, feeling themselves, finding a groove. I could see any kind of possibility for this game, which means ultimately I don't have a very strong lean. So it's a no bet.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I lean to Villa on the handicap and lean to the under because these games at home for Liverpool just haven't been full of lots of goals. 9 goals scored, 3 conceded. That's it at home over the course of the season thus far. So, I mean, they lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, but these games have kind of been low event, manageable games despite what happened midweek. So to the under, to Villa on the handicap, that's where I'm leaning for both those games. No official play for me, but that's where I would go. What is making your betting card this weekend in the Premier League, Jake?
So my favourite bet of the week comes in a market that we don't actually discuss very often. It's the corner market, but specifically the corner handicap in the Brentford v Bournemouth game. So I've got a little bit off-piste. But it's the corner handicap set at draw no bet line for the Bournemouth-Brentford game. And I think Bournemouth should be a lot shorter, and the line probably should be closer to 0.75, something like that. We're getting minus 107 for Bournemouth on the corner handicap, and Bournemouth in terms of results recently have been excellent. They've had a great week, haven't they? Beating Arsenal, drawing at Villa, beating Man City, up to 10th in the league. They'll be fancying themselves to get another win, but. Yeah, like I said, the fact that this is Pick'em, I find it really interesting because Bournemouth have won the 3rd most corners in the league so far this season. Only City and Tottenham have actually won more corners, while Brentford have conceded the 2nd most corners so far this season. And if we look at just away and home games, respectively, Bournemouth have won 7 corners per game away from home through 5 matches, which is a really high tally for a visiting side. While Brentford have actually lost the corner battle in 3 of 5 home matches, including against Southampton and Ipswich. So I am very surprised that the line is kind of set at 0, and I do have Bournemouth as a fairly strong favourite to win the most corners in this match. So taking the plus 0 as we do on the the Asian handicap, it means that if we end all square, we get our money back. But I would be surprised if Bournemouth don't come away with more corners. I mean, they've already been to Anfield and got more corners than Liverpool, which kind of shows you the way in which they go about the business.
But it's funny, but they don't score a lot of away goals. It's just average. I believe they've scored 9 away goals on the Premier League season, which is good for Bournemouth. I like the goals in this game. I'm going to focus on the Brentford team total over a goal and a half at plus 102. They have the second best home expected goals in the Premier League, and they played weaker teams, but Bournemouth away is a lot different than Bournemouth at home. They're just a little bit of a different side. Brentford scored 15 home goals on the season, and there's lots of chances both ways. I like your rationale behind the corners. And Brentford has scored 2 goals in their last 3 meetings against Bournemouth as well. So there's context, there's history. The data supports it. A little bit of a plus number is good enough for me. I actually have a corners market play this week too. Again, something that we don't typically delve into. I'm going over 10.5 corners in Brighton, Man City. Both teams, the way that they play, again, have been creating chances, but maybe not a lot of goal scoring chances. Both have gone over 10.5 corners in recent games. Brighton 4 of their last 5, City in 8 of their last 10. I think there's going to be a little bit more urgency. Brighton plays in an urgent style of football anyways, and City, with a little bit of pressure, having lost 3 in a row, I think that they'll have to put their foot down just a little bit in this one as well. So I don't mind that over 10.5 at minus 112. Where do you want to go next, Jake?
Stay at the Amex, because I'm taking the goal line set at 3, and I think that's a little bit low. Usually Brighton we're seeing 3.25. It's dropped a little bit since the new manager's come in, but this is more about Manchester City being vulnerable at the back. It's 3 games in a row now they've conceded over 2 expected goals. They've lost all 3. Obviously, they conceded 4 times at Sporting. Bournemouth, very, very good attacking display against this City team. And Brighton and Spurs obviously did them in the Carabao Cup, admittedly with quite a few changes for the City side, but that's where they're at right now. They've got so many injuries that we are seeing quite a few changes, probably more than what Pep Guardiola would like. Brighton coming off a free week. They are in that kind of calibre when it comes to attacking style of a Bournemouth and a Tottenham, maybe not quite as explosive as Spurs, but very similar to Bournemouth. And it's a very tricky away game, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Brighton actually score a couple of goals here. But at the same time, Brighton play such a high line that they leave themselves so exposed to everyone they play that you could easily see Manchester City scoring 3-4. It's the kind of game that looks perfectly set up for Erling Haaland. I think back to City when they went to West Ham earlier in the season, and West Ham played with that really high line, and Haaland just ran through twice. 1 ball through, he's through 1-on-1 and he scored. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see something similar happen this weekend. But I think the total's a little bit too low, and get my money back if I get 3 goals. I think we'll get a very good run for our money there at minus 114.
Just to back that up, City over 2.5 in 7 of 8. Brighton over 2.5 in 7 of 8. Brighton haven't had a clean sheet in the last 16 against City, and they've gone over the total of 2.5 in 6 of the last 7 meetings as well, if you want to get on board with Jake. I know there's one other match that you're keeping your eye on. What's that game, and what's the market looking like?
The game is Nottingham Forest versus Newcastle.
Third place, Forest.
Yeah, I'm gobsmacked really that Forest are the outsiders at home. Newcastle obviously coming off that 1-0 win, but Forest coming off their own really dominant display. And I know West Ham had a man sent off, but Forest were in control of that game throughout. I think Nottingham Forest have shown that they're at a level now where they warrant being favourites for this kind of game, even if it is just marginal favourite. Flip the odds, so Forest are the 165 favourites and Newcastle the 186 outsiders. But this is a prolonged period of really good process now for Nottingham Forest. Ever since Nuno's come in, they've ranked as the 5th best team in the Premier League. Unexpected points. Defensively, they've looked very, very strong. And in Chris Wood, they've got one of the most informed strikers in the Premier League. He's coming up against his former team, the team that sold him. Everyone was laughing. Forest paying so much money for him. He's rubbish. He'll be looking to get one over on them. But it's actually the home and away that I find really interesting, because Newcastle, they sit 13th on expected points. So the bang mid-table, Forest deservedly up and around the top 6 based on performances. But at home, Forest have been very, very good, especially at the back. Just over 1 expected goal against conceded. Newcastle away from home, they've won just once, they've lost twice, and they've conceded nearly 2 expected goals against per game. So for whatever reason, when they travel, their defence kind of falls apart, and that's continued from last year. If you remember last year, they were awful away from home. They had a real struggle on their travels, obviously no doubt not helped by the midweek European football that they played earlier in the season, but there is a real vulnerability there, and I think that Forest can take advantage. Like I said, I'm surprised that we're getting Forest as just the favourites to win the game, and that ultimately means that we're getting a plus number for a draw no bet, and that to me makes the most sense given that these two have had. Forest have drawn 2 home games and Newcastle have drawn 2 away games, so we've got a little bit of security there. Plus 103 for Forest on the draw no bet, which, yeah, I mean, it might be one of the biggest value plays of the weekend in my mind.
Okay, that's Jake. What he's looking at in terms of this weekend in the Premier League, I think one of the best value plays of the weekend, and it's definitely making my top 3, is Fulham coming away with a result at Crystal Palace on the weekend. Palace plays at plus 167, Fulham at plus 169. I'm going to, just like you're backing Nottingham Forest, I think the play is on the draw, no bet at minus 104. This is shifted out. I actually already made a play. I locked in at plus 103, but this is still bettable range for me. First of all, head-to-head, Fulham has lost to Palace in 5, and their last 3 meetings finished in a draw. So, okay, that's all right. But Fulham, on the season, they have the 4th best expected points away from home in the Premier League. And overall, they're 2nd in expected points at 19.96, only behind Liverpool. So the data in the process looks good. By comparison, Palace, their expected points are at 11.33 overall. Fulham have 15 points, Palace have 7 points. And basically the line is being made. It's just about even money going both way. I don't see it being that way. Look, Fulham have been competitive away from home. Draw at Everton, okay, 3-2 loss at City, win at Forest. That's a difficult place to go and win a game. Crystal Palace won at Spurs last week. 1-0 was the final, but the XG for both sides in that game was exceptionally low. They play very defensive. They don't try to get out on the front foot. Glasner doesn't trust this team to do that. Marco Silva does with this Fulham side. So I'm going to go with the progressive side with the better numbers and the better data to back it up this season. Fulham on a draw no bet at just about even money. That is making one of my top 3 bets of the week, as is Manchester United, Leicester City, both teams to score an over 2.5. That plays at minus 107. United can't keep a clean sheet. No clean sheet in 5. Both teams to score has played in 5 of 5. Leicester City, both teams to score in 5 of 6. Haven't had a clean sheet in 4. Head-to-head, United, 3 wins, no losses in their last 4. Leicester City hasn't kept a clean sheet against United in 20. They played to a 5-2 win for United at Old Trafford in the Carabao Cup, but that was Leicester City's second team. It wasn't their starting players that were playing that game. They still scored twice. The game was wide open. I'm not sure who you put in defensively for Leicester City that would make me think that United can't score. Even Manchester United can't get in their own way here. Like, it's the last match at home, last game for Ruud van Nistelrooy in charge. I think there'll be some goals in this game, and he'll be willing to open it up a little bit. The 10.03 expected goals against at home for Manchester United, by the way, backing Leicester City to score in this game, is 4th worst in the Premier League. And Leicester City has scored in every away game this season, including scoring twice at Arsenal. They scored at Spurs. They scored at Fulham. And they're 8th in away expected goals this season. And their expected goals against away from home is the 2nd worst in the Premier League. So I'm expecting goals in this one. Make it go both way over 2.5 at minus 107. So those are my plays. Just to sprinkle one more in, it won't make my podium, but I'll back Wolves. Why not? You mentioned them off the top to beat Southampton at minus 102. 5 wins in a row for Wolves head to head in this matchup. Southampton, I think they're a team that you can bet with them when they're playing at home. Away from home, it's a different story. 5 losses from 5 games, 3 goals scored, 11 conceded, 12.15 expected goals against. They played some good teams, but I can't back them away from home. And Wolves, they're due. I don't think they're as bad as what their 0-1-4 home record suggests. This will be the week where they come away with their first home win. So that's my board in the Premier League. Anything to add on that before we look at the rest of the continent?
No, not really. I think, Wolves are just a funny one because they're like similar to Arsenal in the sense they've had a really horrible start to the season schedule wise.
Yeah.
But the pressure's piled on now that they've got an easier run of fixtures coming, and they're desperate for points. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of manage that, because they're so gung ho in their approach that the teams around them that they're playing could just kind of sit in, counter attack, and expose them, which is what everyone else has been doing. So fascinating to see how they got on, but they are good fun to watch at least.
I'm just not sure Southampton's made that way. They're a possession-based team.
Yeah,
they're not going to be the side
absolutely.
that can take advantage of that. So I think the matchup works well for Wolves as well. Let's move things forward to La Liga this weekend. Barcelona travels to Real Sociedad this week, where they're a significant favorite. Does Barcelona keep it rolling? They went up 3 goals in the first half last week and sat on it to a 3-1 victory against Espanyol. And Sociedad came away with a big win over Sevilla last weekend. What's going to happen here, Jake?
Barca are going to win, is what's going to happen. Jeff, just a quick note on that Barca derby last week, because we got off recording, didn't we? And we looked at the goal line, and it had moved from 4 to 4.25. So anybody who backed the over 4.25 and they were 3-1 after, 50 odd minutes or so, that's a bad beat. As Barca took the foot off the gas, knowing that they got a midweek Champions League and then this away game. But yeah, I've full confidence in Barca here. Minus 125. That's right in the bettable range for me for them just to win the match. I'm actually surprised that they're not closer to minus 150, given the dominance that they've shown so far this season. Just to put it in perspective, they topped the La Liga on obviously normal points, but also expected points. They picked up nearly 6 more expected points than next best Atletico Madrid, so they've been absolutely dominant. In terms of creating chances, they've created 10 more expected goals than any other team in the league through 12 matches, which is just astonishing. Granted, they've not been as tight as Atletico, who currently lead the league in expected goals against, but they're conceding just over 1 expected goal against per game, and that process is comfortably the best in the league. And meanwhile, you've got a Sociedad team who are seem to be like kind of reset almost. They had a good couple of years, managed to get into the Champions League, but didn't have a good year last year, or as good a year. And so far this campaign, they've been very, very ordinary. Their process is only slightly positive. It's very much mid-table. Expected points, they're 11th. And at home, they are 1-1-4. So they've lost 4 games at home already so far this season, which is the worst home record in the division. They've been a little bit unfortunate with some of those, but they now face a Barcelona team that are just creating an abundance of chances every time they step onto the pitch. So I would be hugely surprised if Barcelona didn't come away with 3 points. And I think the number available there just for them to win, we don't even need them to win convincingly, I think is an absolute solid play. Well, definitely makes my podium.
Yeah, minus 125. I'll tack on that. Barcelona win and over 2.5 plays at plus 160. The line is set at 3 here. I wouldn't even shy away against that. Barcelona in the last 4 away in La Liga have scored 4, 3, 2, and 5. They've 22 goals scored and 8 conceded in those 7 away fixtures. It's wild. You mentioned Sociedad. They're just 13th in home and expected points. And the history between these sides, Sociedad doesn't have a clean sheet against Barcelona in 20. Barcelona have won the last 4 away at Real Sociedad, and the home side hasn't won in the last 10 in this fixture either. So Barcelona win and over 2.5. If you want to, boost that up from minus 125, plus 160 on Pinnacle seems to be a top play for me. Really quickly, also in La Liga, it's a joint play because that Barcelona Sociedad made my podium, but I want to include Real Betis against Celta Vigo as well. Plus 103 to back Betis as a home side win seems almost too good to be true. They're 3rd overall in expected points, 2nd at home in expected points, 4-1-1. They've only conceded 4 home goals and expected goals against have just over 5. Betis, no losses in their last 5 overall. Celta Vigo may have beat Getafe at home last week, but Getafe had a player sent off in the 65th minute. Away from home, they've been dreadful, 1-0-4, and the only side they beat was Las Palmas 1-0. So they lost to Liga, Osasuna, Athletic Club. and Villarreal, conceding 3 or more in 3 of those 4 games. And head-to-head in this fixture, Betis won it 2-1 last season as well. So on a straight-up money line, plus 103 to back Betis, I really like that play as well. That's all for me. I'm going to save a couple longer shots to share right at the end, but that's all in La Liga for me, unless you see anything else, Jake.
No, that's me done. Just the one.
In Serie A this weekend, no real play, but it's worthwhile bringing up. Well, maybe I have a play in this match. It's the marquee fixture of the weekend. It's Inter and it's Napoli. Can Napoli rebound after, can they bounce back? That's the big question. And Inter's going to be coming off a game on Wednesday against Arsenal. These are 2 legitimate title contenders here, where the Napoli double chance, so handicap at plus half a goal, is available on Pinnacle at plus 104. They're away from home, but I'm leaning towards making that my play in this one to see if they can bounce back from that 3-0 loss to Atalanta last week. What do you make of that, Jake? Napoli doesn't play midweek. Inter is a big Champions League fixture against Arsenal. They've shown some warts, especially the ability to concede goals at home in recent fixtures as well for Inter. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, it's very, very interesting because I remember back to when Inter they drew 0-0 at Manchester City, and Inzaghi made loads of changes. He basically played a second string team, resting players for the Milan derby. That didn't go so well because they managed to lose that game. I just wonder if you'll take the same approach, knowing that this is quite a big game and the Champions League phase. You've still got another 4 games after the midweek round to kind of get yourself into the top 8. This is a great opportunity for them to, again, stamp their authority on Serie A, because the title race is actually looking really, really good. It looks really tight. Yeah. Anybody who's not looked at the table, you've got Napoli top on 25, and just 4 points separate them and 6th place Juventus. And it would be 5 points separate them and 7th place Milan if they win their game in hand. So we've got the potential for a really, really entertaining title race. Ultimately, I still think Inter are the best team in Italy. The underlying data says it's Atalanta at the moment based on expected points, but I think over the season, Inter are going to top that expected points table. And ultimately, the way in which Napoli were playing prior to that Atalanta hammering was very, very low margin, typical Antonio Conte style football. And I just don't think that's going to get the job done in Serie A when there's so many good teams, or so many teams at a very similar level. Again, his previous time he was in Italy, there wasn't as many contenders he had to deal with, whereas this time it looks like you've got 4 or 5 teams you've got to kind of outdo. So I think that Inter's firepower definitely gives them the advantage. I personally will be looking at that Inter price and thinking that could well be a very, very solid bet at minus 116. But it's no bet again for me, because I've got a lot of respect for what Conte's done so far at Napoli in terms of, basically, he's turned the ship around. It was a right mess at the back end of last season. He's brought in some players. He's completely changed the system, and it's kind of clicked straight away. So, again, it's one of those. I could see it going either way, but if we're looking at the long run future play, I still will be looking at Inter. Not sure about this game, though.
Conte against Inter makes sense for me to make it was 1-1 last season. I can see that playing out again this season. Remember, Napoli before that loss to Atalanta, who is also a good team, hadn't lost in 10 and had 6 wins in a row heading into it. Give Conte a week to plan ahead of this one, going on the road, playing tough, stuck in, just playing within themselves. Their expected goals against is good on the season for Napoli. They don't give away much. So I think the game can maybe turn into one of those with very few chances. So give me Napoli in the double chance at a small plus number. I have one quick play in the Bundesliga before I want to throw a couple punts out there. Augsburg plus 117 at Hoffenheim. Again, it's one of those like Betis Celta Vigo. Just seems too good to be true. Augsburg, no losses in 3 at home, 3 overall, 4 wins in a row at home, and 6 wins in 7 at home overall. They're 5th in expected points. Hoffenheim are dreadful away. 0-3-2 in their last 5 away. Haven't won away in 7 in all competitions this season. The worst away expected points, just 2.06 in 4 games, 3 goals scored, 6 conceded, an XG of 2.8. Like, just in terms of the data alone, backing the home side at plus 117 against a side that just hasn't traveled well in the season speaks to me. So that was the best value I could find there. Anything in the Bundesliga for you?
No, I had a little look through, but as ever, the goal lines are fairly high, and yeah, the favourites are fairly short. As always is usually the case. You do get the occasional anomaly where there is a low goal line, but no bet for me in the Bundesliga this weekend. I think.
No bets for you?
No bets.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I have a couple long shots I want to throw out there. Food for thought if you're looking to maybe combine something to look at those markets on Pinnacle this weekend. Athletic Club at Real Valladolid this weekend. I like to back Athletic Club plus both teams to score at plus 338. Bilbao are 6th in away expected points, 7 goals scored, 6 conceded, 19 points overall. Valladolid isn't a very good team. They lost 1-0 last weekend at Osasuna, but this is a team, other than that game, have regularly gone over 2.5. Over 2.5 in 7 of 8, both teams to score in 7 of 8. They haven't won a game at home all season, but they've scored a goal in those games. They won't go out and score 2, Jake, but they're a regular team that will at least pop in with 1. 4 goals scored, but their expected goals at home is a little bit higher, almost 7. Bilbao, 3 wins and no losses in their last 4. Valladolid, no clean sheet against Bilbao in 8. They played to over 2.5 in 6 and 7, and both teams to score in 6 of 8. And Bilbao won 3-1 away in this fixture last season. At plus 338, that's worth the punt for me because I think that is the most likely result. Same thing goes in the Bundesliga. Wolfsburg is away to Heidenheim this weekend. I like Wolfsburg at under 2.5 at plus 547. This is a big old number. Wolfsburg's playing some decent football. 3 wins in a row, including a draw at Augsburg, and they beat Dortmund in the Pokal. They're 7th best away expected points, 2-1-1 on the season. 8 goals scored, 5 conceded, but their XG is just 5.61, and it's just about the same in terms of expected goals against. So not a lot of chances, really good goal scoring chances in these games. Heidenheim haven't won in 3. They lost 1-0 at Holstein Kiel last week. Yuck. 0-1-3 in their last 4 in the Bundesliga. 4 goals scored, that's it. And 4 conceded at home as well, with low data margins in terms of the expected goals and the expected goals against as well. So, and Wolfsburg hasn't lost to Heidenheim in 5. So Wolfsburg and under 2.5 at plus 547. That is a play I will make. 2 punts if you want to look for some longer odds in terms of this weekend fixtures. So that's it for me. Anything to add?
No, just the top 3 picks. Mine are Barca to beat Real Sociedad, number 1, minus 125. Forest on the handicap, drawn a bet, plus 103. And Bournemouth corner handicap at minus 107. What's your podium?
Fulham to beat, draw no bet against Crystal Palace. I booked it at plus 103, but it's available on Pinnacle at minus 104. Manchester United and Leicester City, both teams to score, and over 2.5 at minus 107, as well as, let's make it Real Betis and Celta Vigo, backing Betis to win outright at home at plus 103. So those are our podiums for this weekend. Let's see how we fare. We'll enjoy, at least one of us will, the international break, and we'll reconvene after that. And we'll get right back into our new Champions League football podcast as well. Make sure to check those out. Please like, please subscribe, and get involved in the chat as well. Have a good week, Jake. Best of luck this weekend.
Likewise. Have a good one.
And thank you, the viewer, the listener, for tuning in as well. I'm Wheels. He's Jake. And this has been episode 11 of Pinnacle FC.